Hey guys, and thank you for joining me here on another episode of Gaz-D-Projects. We're going to be taking a look at the giant bike. We're going to take the wheel off and basically just change out the tube. The reason why I'm doing this is because a friend of mine struggled to change a puncture on a bicycle of his, and I just want to show the quick steps involved in changing the tube and some preventative measures. So without further ado, what we'll do is we'll just jump right into it. We'll take the wheel off and we will go from there. So quick release, spring loaded quick release, just unwind the brakes here, the cable, just make sure we disconnect. One sec. See, can I do this? Okay, 1 second. Sometimes it's easier just to wind out the or wind in the little screw fit there on the brake. That makes it a little bit easier. Just disconnecting the cable and brake blocks, levers, etc. Once that's done, then it's a case then of just removing the wheel. The wheel over here like this. You've loosened the axle off enough, and we'll just give it a little tap. Okay, so a little bit caught on the other side, and there we go. Wheel is out. We have our wheel. Put the bike over here out of the way for a minute. Okie doke, let's have a look. Let's have a look. Okay. Okay, so press the valve. Just right here. Press the valve as opposed to a Schrader valve. It's designed to hold more pressure, more PSI. Let the air out. What little air is left in it. Okay, take off your little nut. Get all the air is out. Now I've seen guys use flathead screwdrivers. That's a Phillips, so you can make the flathead screwdrivers like this. The thing with a flathead screwdriver, it can cause damage to the not only the tire but the tube itself. So try not to use a flathead screwdriver. What we can use is tire irons. These guys. Now, the plastic ones of these are much better because less chances of damage to the rim and less damage to the tire and tube, obviously. The thing about these ones, they're a little bit stronger. They're steel, and the ends of the tire lever themselves are nice and blunt, so it doesn't cause any damage. So how do we get the tire off? Well, it's a case whereby insert like so, and then this end then locks onto the spoke itself. Try going another way actually. We know it right. There we go. There we go. So that should just lock in there. Or if you want to go the other way. No, that won't work. Look. Okay, so there's one. And you can put one on the other side. Oh, I've clearly had my Weetabix. Just trying to spare you there, guys, hence the speed up there. Run that along the inside, like so. All the way around until the third bead has come off the rim. Now it's off both sides. It's just a case then of finding the valve. So here's the valve here. Press the valve. What you want to do is you want to push the valve out through the rim and lift it safely to one side. Once that's complete, we just pull tire and tube off altogether. Tube and tire come away from said rim. Rim down on the ground. Have a look at the tube. Okay, so a few things to check here. So tube itself, okay. This tube itself is actually not punctured. There's actually nothing wrong with this. However, what we will do is to recreate of a puncture. We'll puncture it and we'll repair it. So, Stanley blade. Don't need to go too crazy, just a little nick. Just a little nick. Blade's a little bit blunt. Just a little nick. So just to make sure that we have actually punctured, what I'll do is I'll just put a bit of air in to make sure we're getting some air coming in through that. These little pumps are great for on the road. Just bolt directly onto the frame of the bike. You get your Schrader and you get your Presta. So make sure that's down first. Push the valve in until it's seated correctly. Pull the valve clip at the back up and inflate. We'll see that we cause a puncture in the tube itself. Okay, so let's have a look. Just take this off for a sec. Close that valve up. Let's have a look and see did we cause a puncture that time. Probably should have marked where we tried to puncture it as well. We'll check the whole tube all the way around just to make sure. Let's try a bit more air and see. You can hear air whizzing. I'm not sure it's from the valve or from the tube itself. Yep, there we go. There's our puncture. That's another way of checking for a puncture. Just pumping the tube up itself. So there's the hole there. So, puncture repair kit. Find our chalk. Just mark where that is. Okay. Yellow on the black kind of stands out a bit. Camera probably won't pick it up, but I assure you it does stand out when you go to look for it again. Okay, so there's our hole. So now once we've located our hole, we're happy enough that that's where it's at. Chalk there as well. You can deflate the tube. There we go. Deflate all the air out of the tube. She goes nice and flat. Okay. So there's our hole. You guys will be able to make it out, but it's a tiny little hole. So can I stretch it a bit for you? That's the hole right there. So the thing with putting a patch on these tubes is the area needs to be clean. So in the actual puncture repair kit, we get a few bits and bobs to clean things up. A nice little bit of emery paper. That was good. And this helps basically for the glue on the patch itself to adhere nicely. Just give that a little rub. Just chalk that up. So once we're happy that the area is nice and clean, find a patch that will do the job. Now there is different size patches, as you can see. Smaller ones, that's straightforward enough for a smaller hole, bigger ones for a bigger hole. But if you want to be 100%, just go for the big hole. Okay. So glue, I'll just press this. The glue's ready to rock. We have our patch. Just need to open up the patch. Like so. Some people leave the plastic on when they're putting it onto the tube. I prefer to take it off if you can. Can be a bit finicky. Taking the rubber off. It might be a case whereby we need to leave it on this time and see what will come off afterwards. Yeah. How not to use one of these. Okay. Nice. I'm sure it comes off much easier when there we go. It's glued onto the tube. I suppose pay a little bit extra for some decent patches. Let's have a look. So now that we have our patch, we'll locate our hole again, which is just here. Put some glue on there. The patch on top. Just make sure you've got amount of glue on the patch. You can of course wear gloves while doing this. What you'll find is once this glue starts to go off, you'll be able to slightly stretch the patch itself and then add a little bit more glue. I like to put glue on the outside of the patch as well as underneath the underside. That's just my preference that I found over the years. You can see there that I'm stretching that orange part out a little bit there. My finger. Okay, so as that dries in, you'll be able to do more with it, be more pliable. So we'll just let that sit for a while. And don't worry if the edges start to come up on the patch. Just try and get it to glue, kick in, and then just basically just massage it back. You'll probably find by leaving that bit of plastic on top, it's probably easier to apply the patch and probably helps keeping your fingers nice and clean. But I find that if you take it off and put the glue on and you just rub it in like so, let it adhere, let it glue for a bit, and then as it dries out, then you can just massage the patch, the orange part and the outer edge a little bit. You can just pull it out so it gets a nicer seal. You'll find that when this has dried and you put air into the tube, that the patch itself will expand, and you'll see how well the glue works then. So yeah, should be okay. So we'll leave that there, let that dry for a bit. The pump itself actually has a pressure gauge on it as well in PSI. Get a better close-up view of the Schrader hole, valve to go into the Schrader, and then the Presta. So this of course here is the Presta valve, and what a Schrader valve looks like is, I think I have one here. Have a look and see. Yeah, this is a Schrader valve. It's your typical valve you'd find on a car, tyre, mountain bike, better known as a Schrader. Is there any problems with these Schraders? No, normally they're fairly relatively bulletproof. You might find over time that the valve here on the inside starts to leak a little bit, and that's just a case of putting in a Schrader valve tightener in here. Goes in and just tighten it slightly, and that generally resolves that problem. I like using Schrader valves. They're very good. That's not to say that the Presta isn't good, just I find that this is more robust and lasts a little bit longer over time. Okay, so back to our patch. Let's have a look and see how we're doing. Okay, so it seems to be drying in there. Let's have a look and see. So it's still a small bit wet, so I'll give it a bit more time to dry. Small bit of glue there. What I like to do is just go around the patch again and just focus on the orange area of the patch itself as well. So what we want to try and do here is try and pull out that orange part a little bit more, like so. Now, as I said, when you put air into this and it's glued nicely, it's going to stretch anyway, but I want to try and stop any leaking air from the hole coming out through under the patch and then going out through the sides here, the orange sides. So we just want to make sure it's evenly sealed all the way around. So there's a little bit of a break there. I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera, just a small bit there. So just add a little bit more glue to that area. And don't be afraid to rub the glue onto the patch as well, the black part. Get that nice seal. What we'll do is we'll just let that dry for a bit. If you follow the instructions on the puncture repair kit itself, these things, upside down, it will help. But I find over time using these particular types of puncture repair kits, just different ways of getting better results, and I just find doing it this way seems to do the job. Another thing as well people forget to check is when they're trying to repair a puncture. Don't check the tire. Don't check the inside of the tire. As I said earlier, the tire itself has wire in it, and it's wound in such a way that, you know, makes the tire itself stronger, and it's like a cross-ply radial kind of lace in the tire. It adds structure and strength to the tire itself. So just check the inside before you put the tube in, your repair tube or your new tube back in. Just go along the inside of the tube itself and make sure there's no wire sticking out anywhere. Be careful as well when you're running your hand on the inside, because you will cut your fingers. So once again, put on a pair of gloves and just watch yourself. Check the whole tire. Go around the whole tire and just make sure that there is no wire sticking out. And once you're happy there's no wire sticking out, put the tube back into the tire and then fit it back to the rim. Inflate the tire and away you go. Okay, so how is the tube doing? Let's have a look. So the tube itself seems to be gluing up nicely. So I reckon probably still looking a little bit shiny there, and a little bit kind of wet. So we'll leave it for a little bit longer to dry. Once it's completely dry, we'll pump it up and we'll see how well our seal holds up, our new patch holds up. That would be the thing to do. Yep, so it seems to be sealing there already nicely. Okay guys, so another top tip: the rim itself, the wheel. The other thing to check for as well is the inside of the rim. Make sure it still has this rubber band on the inside, right? It may be rubber, it might be slightly different material. Make sure it's intact. And the reason for this is it protects the heads and the spokes. The little screws here tension the spoke. Make sure that that band is on there. If it's not, you can use like a rubber tape, amalgamation tape, or black insulation tape. So what I'll do is I might just line this now, and then it's ready to go then. So just a little top tip there for you. Okay, so once you have wrapped a bit of tape to the inside of the rim, you've now prevented the not only the head screws, spokes from being damaged, but the tube also from being damaged. So there's a bit of longevity there going forward. The other thing to do is, while you're actually here, you've got the tire off, tube off, check the hub itself and just make sure it's well lubricated. You can take it apart, check the ball bearings, and just make sure it's greased up nicely. The second thing then is just check the wheel itself, make sure it's not buckled. How we do that is you can use a truing stand to sit the wheel itself in, and you just rotate the wheel and you can check for any buckle. I'll see if I can demonstrate it. I'll try and hold it in my hands a little bit and see, can we do a quick check. Okay, so like so, we'll rotate the wheel, and what we're looking for is, I don't know if you can pick this up on the camera, is any form of buckle. I'll do it this way. Right, so when it's spinning, you want to make sure that there's no buckle. Probably not a great angle. I'm probably focusing on the black lining of the inner hook, the inner rim. So what we want to do is, let's see if I can get it this way. Let's get it going this way. And you want the hub to be at a fixed point, and you want to check to make sure that there's no lateral movement this way or the opposite way, basically. So that way or that way in this hub. When it's rotating, it's not doing this. It doesn't have a wobble, or it doesn't have lateral. There's no horizontal movement and no lateral. And once you check this, you can mark where it's out and you can adjust accordingly. And you use a spoke tool. I think I have one here, like this. Okay, you want to find your correct size. So it's this one. Yep. So you want to find the correct size, and all you're doing is, when the rim is moving in or out, you're adjusting. So either loosening or tightening the spoke. So tighten to pull it in and loosen to bring it back out. And you're going to work your way the whole way around the rim until it runs true and square, so there's no buckle in the wheel. Now, as I said, the proper way, professional way to do this is with a truing stand. You'll have a dial gauge that sits here and checks the run out on the rim, and you can adjust accordingly. But over years of doing this, I can do this by eye, and I can see where it's in and where it's out, and I can adjust accordingly. I might do another video on this down the road. If somebody would be interested in that, let me know, and I'll do a video on that. So let's just see how our tube is getting on. Okay, so tube. Okay, so that looks like it's okay. It seems to be dry as well also. So what we do is just put a bit of air into it. And see, does it hold up? There's another thing I keep forgetting to do. That down till it goes in all the way, sits nicely. Then pull up the lever to rotate the pressure gauge, and then just pump away. So I can hear a little bit of hissing. I think it's just from the valve itself, from the Presta. I've got a great seal on these pumps, but that's what they have to hand. They didn't have a Presta valve in stock, would you believe? Selling out quick. They're the ones that screw onto standard bicycle pump. You getting any reading there in PSI? Let's have a look. A small amount there, like 10 PSI. It's one of those SpongeBob moments. 2 hours later. So there's a bit of air going in there now. I'll just have a quick look and see. Do we get any leaks from our patch? Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so we'll take the tube till we find our patch. Make sure there's no other holes, of course. Okay, so our patch. So remember I said it would stretch when I put air into it, so you can see that it has stretched. So we got a nice even seal all around here and at the top and in here. Could be a little bit better down here. So we'll put a little bit of glue on the end there. Just a small bit. And we'll just rub that in there. We'll let it go slightly dry. When it becomes tacky, what I mean by tacky is your finger starts to stick, then you can try and pull that orange part of the patch seal down a little bit, and then I'd be fairly happy with that. We try to put a bit more air into it as well, just to make sure that it is holding up nicely. Okay guys, so once we're happy the patch has done its job, it's sealed and ready to go back into the rim of the wheel. What we'll need to do obviously is just deflate the tube. After we deflate the tube, then we'll just check the patch again, make sure the patch is okay. Once it's okay, we'll put the tube and tyre back onto the rim. Some people put the tube on first onto the rim and then the tyre. Personally what I do is I put the tube into the tyre and then the tube and tyre as one onto the rim. Okay, so I'll just close that up. Try not to lose this guy. There we go. Okay, we'll just check our patch. Make sure we're happy with our patch. There it is there. That seems to be fine. It's got a nice little bit of a hump on it. Just means it has a good seal. So I'm happy enough with that. So what we'll do then is we'll put this back into the tyre. So here's our tyre. Okay, so here's our tyre. Tube goes into the tyre. Sometimes lying the tyre flat like this helps. Let's put the tube inside the tyre. And work your way all the way around the tyre until the tube is seated nicely inside of the tyre. Make sure that the valve itself obviously is sticking out so they can go back into the rim. Now remember, we've already checked this tyre for any signs of damage, any tears, rips, any exposed inner wire that could potentially give us a puncture again. So we're happy enough that that's all 100% perfect. So now that the tube and tyre are one, they can go onto the rim. Let's grab the rim. The rim is right here. Find our valve hole, which is here, right there. Put the press the valve in here. Okay, let's slide that down there for a sec. And then get the thing lined up. So once you got the valve through the rim, then just grab the little screw, the washery kind of screw. There's a name for this in the presses, but it evades me now at the moment. Just thread it back onto the valve. Go. Pull the valve down a little bit until it's seated all the way, and just give that a little pinch. Now you have the valve inside of the rim. What we want to do now is we want to just seat the tyre back on to the rim. So we grab one end of the, actually do it flat like this. So once we have it seated, that's what we're looking for. We're just going to seat it the whole way around. We're rotating the rim and the tyre and the tube simultaneously, whilst ensuring that the tube and tyre are sitting nicely on the rim. We want to check to make sure that the tyre bead itself is sitting on the rim. We work our way around again. If it gets a little bit difficult, use the tyre levers again. As I said, I've done this many a time, so my hands and fingers are used to it. Almost asbestos hands. Sometimes I get called. So yeah, so once that's seated the whole way around, check both sides. What I like to do as well is push the rim down on something like a bench and just work my way all the way around without knocking all sides over. Work your way the whole way around, make sure that the bead is seated nicely on the rim itself. And what we'll do is we'll check the opposite side then as well. Make sure we're happy with that. Tighten it around. Make sure our bead is seated on the rim, which it is. Nice. Okay, all the way around. Once we're happy, what we'll do is we'll put the air into the wheel. You can do this lying down. Some people recommend doing it standing up, which is fine. Some people recommend doing it this way with the valve on the bottom. Some do the way around, so it's really your own preference. It doesn't really make any kind of difference. I kind of do it that way with the valve facing up. So you might be able to do it here if I rest it here. Let's have a look. Okay. Get my little pump. Loosen off the valve top. I'm going to press the hole. Push it up in, make sure you get a positive seating. Once we're happy it's in, pull down the lever. And then we're good to go. We can rotate our gauge to see what pressure we're at. And then just give it a few pumps until she is plated. Now what I'll do is I'll just take this down onto the ground because it's more, it's better for me to pump it that way, between my legs. Actually, I might let you guys have a look at that and see. Okay, here we go. Now, so whilst we're pumping, we're making sure that the seal of the tyre is seated the whole way around the rim. Okay, and I'm just going to inflate the tyre now. Okay, what pressure are we at? Okay, so 9 psi. I'm coming up slowly there. 1 psi. Okay, yep. Okay, so once we're happy, disconnect, tighten back our valve. My cap has gone missing. There's only a dust cap that goes over these and it protects the compressor valve. Stops any dirt residue from getting into the valve and fouling the valve up. So if you manage to get a new tube when it comes with a cap, make sure you have the cap on it. It's good practice. Okay, so all that's left to do now is just to put the wheel itself back onto the bike. So we're just going to go around and check to make sure that it's seated nicely. That white line is actually a good indication. I don't know if you guys can pick that up there on the camera. What you want is an even seating the whole way around. You don't want that line to dip lower to the rim. You want it even the whole way around. So which it is. Just check that there. That looks nice. If it is off slightly, just give it a little bit of a flex. I have purposely left a little bit of air out of the wheel to accommodate me flexing like this with my hand. Just check the opposite side. Okay, it's nice all the way around. Let's go around there. Let's go around. So once this goes back onto the bike, then we'll set it to its correct PSI. PSI on these is normally listed on the tyre itself. There's the size, 700 by 32C. PSI 65. There we go. 65 PSI. I don't know if you guys can make that out. It's just right there. 65 PSI. Okay. So that'll be its max pressure. Alright guys, so we have the wheel back on the bike. Just noticed as well, I was putting the brakes back on, the cabling and stuff. When I rotated the wheel, there was a little rub on the block. So what we can do is in another video we can show you how to adjust the brake blocks to circumvent that little problem. And as I said before, we can look at the checking the wheel for buckle and throwing the wheel correctly in the throwing wheel in another video. If that's something you guys would be interested in, let me know. Another thing I copped as well is the tyre itself. Some of these tyres, they'll have a directional arrow and tell you what way the tyre goes on, so what way it should basically rotate and go down the road. So if you look at the thread pattern here, you'll see that there's almost like a V. So you'll see the thread pattern here, that there's like a V shape in the tyre itself. See the camera focus in a bit. So you want to make sure that the V is pointing in that direction. See it there? That's the way you want the tyre to go on, like that. Not with the V facing the opposite direction. Going to go in that direction. And the reason for that is because tyres themselves, like on cars, they're big water pumps. What I mean by a water pump is they displace water from the tyre. So if you look at the tyre here, the way it's got grooves and lines on it. So what I'll do is I'll take the water into the centre here and it'll push the water out through the grooves. And that, the reason why I put the tyre on the right way is for effective displacement of the water on the road, and it gives you better traction and grip. So I just want to pay attention to when we're putting our tyres on the correct way around. Thanks very much for watching, guys. If you've liked it, give us a subscribe, like, thumbs up, all that jazz. Stay tuned for more upcoming videos, and I hope you've enjoyed.